Can you believe I'm being called out for skipping a final farewell to my sister? Picture this. I was 18, and my sister, who was 19, throws me under the bus, claiming I hit her, all to shield her sketchy boyfriend. Dad, obviously playing favorites, sided with her without blinking and gave me the boot with a wild threat of locking me up for decades. Seriously, am I the bad guy here for wanting to steer clear of this mess? At that critical juncture, all I sought was an escape from the impending chaos. The shock and urgency of the situation propelled me to exit stage left without delay. My mom, while not entirely convinced of my innocence, extended a lifeline in the form of some cash. This act, though not an outright expression of belief in my side of the story, afforded me a crucial buffer to land on my feet, secure a job, and start afresh. Revenge against my sister and the injustice I faced briefly clouded my thoughts, yet over time, tranquility took its place. Hey, everyone. Before you go, I've got something exciting to share. If you've enjoyed diving into the stories we explore here, I've got a brand new channel that takes things to the next level. Over there, we're uncovering even longer, more shocking stories straight from the depths of Reddit. The kind that will leave you on the edge of your seat. It's a whole new adventure with content you won't find here, and I can't wait for you to check it out. The link to our new channel is in the description below. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our incredible stories. Your support means the world to me, and I'm thrilled to bring you along on this new journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over there. Now back to our story. I not only carved out a new path by completing my degree at a public university, but also entered a fulfilling career. Most significantly, I found a partner who stood by me when shadows loomed large. Fast forward to the present, and a message from my mom pops up on my wife's Facebook. Ironically, the go-to platform for communication in my country. Given the bridge my mom provided at my lowest, I felt compelled to consider her outreach as a gesture of owing her, despite the past's complexities. I took the step to hear my mom out. She dropped the bombshell. My sister is on her deathbed, battling terminal cancer, with doctors declaring they've hit a wall. Her last wish? To extend an apology and make amends before her time runs out. My gut reaction? I told my mom, in no uncertain terms, that my sister could take her regrets to the grave. I've carried a decade's worth of resentment, and in that conversation, I unleashed years of pent-up frustration. My mom, ever the peacemaker, implored me to reconsider, if not for my sister, then for her sake. Seeking counsel from my wife, her stance was unwavering. You don't owe them anything. Your family let you down, your sister included. If it were me, I'd let her confront her final moments without the closure she seeks. But remember, I've got your back, no matter what you decide. Her words resonated with me, yet a part of me is curious, even tempted to face my sister. The dilemma? I'm not sure I can trust myself to remain composed. Consulting my closest friends, they lean towards granting her that peace. Now I'm wrestling with whether I'm in the wrong, or if I should temporarily bury my anger until she's gone. So does that make me the bad guy? Let's dive into the top comments. Has she ever confessed to lying? Have any of them actually said sorry? If not, you owe them zero. Let them deal with their own mess. Exactly. She's had years to make things right. Now, staring down her own mortality, she's scrambling for forgiveness, not for you, but to ease her own conscience. Just tossing out an apology doesn't undo the damage. She let you suffer, choosing her boyfriend over your well-being, and lived with that choice for a decade. Her sudden desire to apologize isn't about making amends for your sake. It's about dodging her own regrets and guilt. She can carry that burden herself, knowing that OP gives absolutely zero crap about her and her dying wish, or just family as a whole. That he's found something better and wants nothing to do with them. Hopefully, it's a painful time she has left. Not alone. Not everyone deserves peace upon death, in my opinion. No one is owed absolution on their deathbed. Only visit her if it will benefit you. As I said above, she's not owed peace simply because she's dying. Her own actions caused her unrest. You only need to focus on what is best for you. I would visit her with family and her friends just to question her on her deathbed if she has any remorse of what she did and why it took her dying to finally come forward. Make her answer all uncomfortable questions in front of everyone. I then tell her that I will not forgive her, and I don't care if she dies. If I decide to face them, it will be to make it crystal clear. This is the end of the road for any form of contact with me. Their actions are unforgivable, and after I've said my piece, I'll walk away for good. It's unanimous. She's still centering her desires above everything, but her wants are irrelevant to me. She's reaping what she sowed, and I owe her nothing. The debt is theirs, both hers and our parents'. My mom earns a special mention for her attempts at emotional leverage, as if her support back then was some monumental favor. She, along with my dad, can join their favorite daughter in their metaphorical descent. They ceased being family to me long ago, switching gears. Am I in the wrong for charging my son rent? Here's the situation. My 17-year-old has recently skyrocketed in his live streaming career, transforming his room into an envy-worthy setup with the latest tech. He's now earning around $3,000 a month, a staggering figure for someone his age. Initially skeptical, I've verified his earnings and now ponder over the idea of rent. My son recently ventured into the world of making money through live streaming, a fact he didn't volunteer until I prodded him about it. It struck me as odd that he kept this a secret, but once confronted, he opened up and shared the details of his earnings, along with his Twitch and other streaming accounts. Observing his newfound financial independence, I proposed the idea of him contributing to household expenses by paying a modest rent of $1,600 a month. This amount is reflective of the value provided by his spacious 500-square-foot room, complete with an ensuite and significant personal space, not to mention the utilities he consumes, particularly our Wi-Fi and electricity, essential for his streaming activities. I envisioned this arrangement as an educational opportunity, a practical lesson in financial responsibility and the realities of adulthood. Nonetheless, my wife disagrees strongly with this approach. She argues that as parents, it's our duty to provide for him unconditionally without imposing rent, especially considering his age and our role in his life. To find a middle ground, I suggested allocating the rent he would pay into a savings account for his future, hoping this would appease my wife's concerns by demonstrating that the intent was not to burden our son, but to prepare him for the future. Unfortunately, this suggestion didn't sway her. Our son, who completed high school ahead of schedule, has dedicated his gap year to streaming, postponing the decision about pursuing higher education. This has sparked a series of intense debates within our household. My wife believes I'm being overly strict, failing to recognize the importance of allowing our son to enjoy his youth. These discussions have underscored a division in our perspectives on how best to support our son's development and independence. I believe I'm simply facing reality and aiming to equip my son for life's financial demands. Growing up, the rule was clear. Earn like an adult. Contribute like one. This principle guided me into adulthood, and I hope to instill the same value in him. However, the dilemma arises from his age. He's on the cusp of adulthood, but not quite there. So does that make me unreasonable for expecting him to start contributing financially now that he's earning a substantial amount? The debate extends beyond our household discussions to considerations about his tax status. If we start charging him rent, we need to adjust his dependency status on our taxes, a fact that complicates the matter further. And where can you find a two-bedroom for $1,600 these days? In many places, even a studio would cost 3 times that amount, highlighting the generosity of the proposed rent. Some argue that my motive seems to be about cashing in on my son's success rather than teaching him financial responsibility. If he were earning a modest income from a typical teen job, like at a fast food restaurant, would I still consider charging him rent? This question forces me to reflect on whether my approach is fair and consistent. Additionally, the implication of this financial arrangement on our taxes is another layer to navigate. It's a complex situation, made even more so by his age and the unexpected success in his streaming career. So I'm left wondering, am I being practical or just overly harsh by expecting him to contribute to household expenses? The revelation that my son eventually opened up about his earnings, specifically through his Twitch and other streaming platforms, speaks volumes. It suggests he might have been wary of disclosing his financial success, possibly fearing a mercenary response. A truly educational approach from a parent would involve sitting down with their child to discuss the nuances of financial planning, including investments, setting long-term financial goals, and understanding taxation. Imposing rent on him doesn't impart these critical life skills. Rather, it sends a disappointing message that financial success within the family might be met with opportunistic demands. The decision to charge rent to a minor, especially one who has independently achieved notable success, comes off as both absurd and self-serving. It doesn't acknowledge his hard work or independence, but rather penalizes him for his financial acumen. This situation echoes a personal experience where, despite not earning nearly as much, I was treated more as a source of income than a family member, a dynamic that shifts the parent-child relationship to that of a landlord and tenant. This approach overlooks the importance of maintaining a supportive home environment, focusing instead on financial contributions. It was only upon encountering similar stories of parental selfishness that I began to understand the detrimental impact of such actions on a child's perception of family support and financial independence. This realization highlights the need for a more nurturing approach to guiding young individuals in their journey toward financial literacy and independence. Every once in a while there's another post like this, and it comments heal me a little bit more. Every time I finally cut off my mother at the beginning of this month at 30 years old for a ton of stuff, and stuff like this reminds me why. Thanks for being a voice of reason for those of us who don't know what parental love looks like. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter to find another place to live because she's pregnant again? My 49 and female daughter Josie, 19, had her first baby when she was 15. My husband and I were devastated at first because we knew this was going to be a very difficult path for our daughter. We did all the kid to give her said, but it wasn't enough and we couldn't turn back time. We found ourselves in a situation where all we could do was support Josie's choices and provide guidance. My husband and I stepped in to help our daughter with her new responsibilities as a mother, all the while encouraging her to complete her high school education. Despite our efforts, Josie decided against finishing school, asserting that her primary focus was on her child and she couldn't spare the time for academics. We were clear in our stance that she needed to either continue her education or find employment, as we were not going to support a path that involved neither. After more than a year since the birth of her child, Josie managed to secure a part-time job at a local hair salon. The baby's father, a young man of Josie's age, contributed a modest sum of around $1 monthly towards the child's needs and made sporadic visits every few months, despite residing in the same city. Just a few days ago, Josie dropped a bombshell on us. She's expecting again, and the father is the same individual as before. My husband and I couldn't hide our frustration. The thought of her choosing to have another child with someone who has shown minimal involvement and support for their first was bewildering. This was especially concerning considering Josie's current living situation with us, where we provide her and her child with a home and substantial support, enabling her to work and have personal time. The prospect of welcoming another child into our already strained situation seemed incredibly unfair. After taking some time to reflect and consult with my husband, we made a difficult decision. We told Josie that it was time for her to consider moving in with the father of her children to co-parent more effectively. Her response was that a cohabitation was out of the question, as they were not in a relationship and furthermore, they wouldn't be able to afford living together. I explained to her that she needed to find a solution because my husband and I were not prepared to shoulder the responsibility of another child. Josie retorted that nothing she did ever seemed to please us. She reminded us that we had urged her to find employment, which she did, and now we were taking issue with the implications of her working hours on our caregiving role. You wanted me to get a job, so I got one, but now you complain about having to look after the baby, which wouldn't have been necessary if I didn't need to work. How am I supposed to manage 2 children and a job at 19? She argued. I countered, stressing that our intention was to instill a sense of responsibility in her following the birth of her first child. We had gone to great lengths to support her, yet it seemed our efforts had not fostered the independence and maturity we had hoped for. "It's not our responsibility to continuously clean up after you," I said, hoping to convey the gravity of the situation and the urgent need for her to adopt a more proactive approach to her life and the well-being of her children. Following our conversation, we advised Josie to discuss living arrangements with the children's father before the arrival of their second child, emphasizing the importance of planning ahead. Since then, Josie has oscillated between tears and silence, evidently struggling to come to terms with our stance. In her search for support, she reached out to both sets of grandparents, hoping they could persuade us to reconsider our decision to not take on the additional responsibility of raising another baby. My husband's parents have accused us of being overly harsh, suggesting we are punishing Josie for a situation that's already in motion and beyond reversal. They've even offered to host Josie and her children, although Josie is reluctant to move her family far from the children's father. My in-laws cautioned that we may come to regret distancing ourselves from our daughter, arguing that we're missing an opportunity to demonstrate unconditional love. The dilemma leaves us questioning how much more we can give without compromising our own well-being and future plans. Am I wrong here? The consensus among top comments is clear. I'm not in the wrong for holding my ground. Many stress the importance of maintaining our boundaries to protect our retirement and future, underscoring that yielding now could set a precedent for continued dependence. Some commentators suggest reevaluating the father's financial contribution, noting his limited means as a college student with his own expenses. The situation presents a complex web of responsibilities and expectations, leaving us to navigate the fine line between support and enabling. The father's lack of involvement and financial support has been a source of immense frustration. Despite living a mere 25 to 30 minutes away from his son, his visits are infrequent at best, displaying a clear preference to be elsewhere. This, coupled with the fact that he has once again contributed to my daughter's pregnancy, is infuriating. Reflecting on a similar situation my brother faced, the courts were unsympathetic to his financial grievances, emphasizing that a child's needs must come before the parents'. This standard should apply equally here. Contributing a mere $100 monthly and visiting sporadically is nowhere near sufficient. It's time to assert that more must be done. These young parents need to be held to a higher standard of accountability. Encouraging my daughter to seek government assistance might be the wake-up call they need, potentially prompting them to reassess their priorities and responsibilities. A similar situation unfolded with my sister-in-law, who relied heavily on her mother for support, living rent-free while the father of her children remained inconsistently involved. Despite having access to free child care, she failed to secure employment, significantly straining her relationship with her mother. This cautionary tale reinforces the necessity of establishing firm boundaries and expectations, as failure to do so can lead to long-term resentment and familial strain. This situation serves as a stark reminder of the importance of personal responsibility and the need for young parents to step up for the sake of their children's well-being. The tragic outcome of my sister-in-law's dependency on her mother highlights a grim reality. Enabling such behavior can lead to severe consequences, leaving the enabler financially and emotionally drained. Her mother's passing, burdened by financial woes and devoid of assistance from the daughter she had supported so extensively, serves as a stark warning. It emphasizes the critical need for establishing boundaries and promoting independence, a stance that might seem harsh but is essential for fostering self-sufficiency. The consensus among commentators is clear. Standing firm on this issue is crucial. It's not about being unkind, but about insisting on personal responsibility. The grandparents have the option to support her relocation or to welcome her into their home, but the onus of change lies with my daughter. At 19, having not learned from her first experience and facing the consequences of a second pregnancy, it's evident that a hard lesson is necessary. If the first lesson had truly been learned, we wouldn't be facing this repeat scenario. Transitioning to another query, I've encountered a moral and financial dilemma involving my father and my wedding funds. Initially, my partner and I considered eloping but eventually decided on a modest, traditional wedding, mindful of our budget constraints. Both sets of parents generously pledged $10,000 each to support us, a commitment for which we were immensely thankful. My mother-in-law fulfilled her promise promptly, providing essential support for initial expenses. Discovering that my father, who has a track record of narcissistic tendencies, has decided to renege on his promise to contribute $10,000 towards our wedding expenses has put us in a dire situation. With the wedding only 2 months away, his refusal has left us stranded financially, as we've already allocated our portion of the budget. The contractual obligations with our vendors mean canceling isn't an option without incurring significant losses, and taking out a loan is something we're keen to avoid. In an attempt to find a solution, I reached out to my grandfather, hoping for some support, only to learn that the $1,000 he believed he had contributed towards our wedding had actually been intercepted by my father. This revelation has put me in a precarious position, contemplating whether exposing my father's deceit to my grandfather would make me the person in the wrong. My father's justification for his actions, that he was merely recouping some of the costs he anticipated incurring on our behalf, does little to mitigate the breach of trust and financial strain his decision has caused. To provide further context, our initial preference was for a small, intimate ceremony or even an elopement, but family pressure swayed us towards a more traditional wedding. Despite managing to keep costs below the average for our highly sought-after venue location, the promised financial support from our parents was crucial in making this feasible. Now faced with my father's betrayal and the potential fallout from bringing this to light, I'm torn between safeguarding family harmony and seeking justice for his actions. My father's financial commitment to our wedding wasn't obligatory, but he volunteered to contribute after receiving a substantial payment from his practice. Had it not been for such offers from family, my partner and I were content with the idea of eloping. Our preference was never for a lavish ceremony. However, the gesture of support made us reconsider. The situation with my grandfather has raised several questions. Why did he not directly give the money to me? Is he aware of my father's history of mismanaging funds or making questionable financial decisions? Unfortunately, my dad has a track record of such behavior. It appears he approached my grandpa under the guise of assisting with the wedding expenses, subsequently providing his own banking details for the transaction. I'm contemplating informing my grandfather about the entire ordeal. It's crucial he understands that my father had promised this money towards the wedding, a promise made without my knowledge of his solicitation for funds. Additionally, he now refuses to fulfill his pledge to contribute to our wedding budget. Labeling someone as the antagonist in this narrative isn't my aim, but if my father has indeed misappropriated funds meant for my wedding, then it's only fair he faces the repercussions of his actions. My grandfather, and potentially others who might have been approached under similar pretenses, deserve transparency about where their contributions have gone. This isn't just about rectifying a wrong. It's about ensuring such a situation doesn't recur, safeguarding not only my relationship with my family, but also their financial interactions moving forward. Highlighting this observation, it's plausible to suspect that my father might have solicited funds from other relatives under the pretext of contributing to the wedding, subsequently diverting those funds for personal use. This situation underscores the necessity of informing my grandfather about the misuse of his generosity. Sometimes bringing such matters to light is essential, as silence often enables wrongdoing to continue unchecked, allowing individuals like my father to exploit the goodwill of others without consequence. Regarding my mother's involvement, or rather, the lack thereof, it's not a matter of her absence, but her long-standing struggle with my father's abusive behavior. Over the years, she has endured significant mistreatment and has chosen to remain on the sidelines in matters involving my father, fearing further confrontation. Her reluctance to intervene is rooted in a deep-seated fear of provoking his ire, a consequence she's keenly sought to avoid throughout their 30-year marriage. This dynamic has inevitably shaped her response to the current predicament, leaving her hesitant to engage or confront the issues head-on.